What up guys, SuperMetal983 here bringing us another CD review. I've got another killer death metal release from 2017 that you really need to check out. This is a recently released one and it's another great one and something that's going to probably appear in the top albums of 2017. When I say probably, it'll probably be quite high up because it's that good. But anyway, this is what I'm going to be reviewing for you today. Yeah, this is the 8th album from the band The Black Dahlia Murder, entitled Nightbringers. This is released under Metal Blade Records. Now, The Black Dahlia Murder are a legendary band in death metal. Whether you like it or not, they are one of the most popular bands in the death metal world, and quite rightly so. They are, in my opinion, a band that I could perfectly describe as consistent. And that word, I perfectly describe The Black Dahlia Murder, because not only have they released an album every 2 years since the band's incarnation in 2001, and they released their debut album in 2003, but every album they have released in that time period, from Unhallowed up till Nightbringers, has always been solid. There's no way around it, it's just been solid. And there's never really been really a shit Black Dahlia Murder album. Yeah, there's been some not very good feelers in there, like for example one that immediately springs to mind is Ever Black, but we'll get to that in a second. And Wyattxhim, I don't really listen to as much because I kind of overplayed that in the beginning, but that's where we'll start off, because the Black Dahlia Murder were the first death metal band that I ever got exposed to. My brother had showed us all sorts of bands back then, and one of the bands that in particular stuck out to me was the Black Dahlia Murder. It was my first taste of death metal, and when I first heard Bullet for Sin, the intro, I was on Wyattxhim, I was like, oh, that is pretty intense. And then when the drums fucking kick in on I'm Charming, I was literally just in awe just listening to this fast, brutal, just heavy, fast-paced blast beat, and I was just like, what the hell is this? And he was like, oh, it's the Black Dahlia Murder. And I was like, I need to lend this CD off you, mate, I need to. And I lent it off him, and I've still got it in my collection. And honestly, that album changed my life, in all honesty, and got us exposed to this whole world called death metal. And then obviously from there on in, we explored it, I explored into the older stuff and the more present stuff at the time. So I dwelled into Nocturnal, which is still one of the best albums I've ever written and one of the best death metal albums in history, if you ask me. Unhallowed, obviously, classic album, great start for the band, and just lives up to the rest of their discography, if you ask me. No matter what period of the Black Dahlia Murder you listen to, it's always going to be consistent and solid. And then obviously after that I started going into like the likes of Deflorate, obviously keep on going back to Wyattxhim and stuff. And then the first like new album I checked out when it came out was obviously Ritual, and Ritual for me is, in my opinion, their best work to date. Personally, this is just to me. I think the symphonic and, well, not seriously symphonic, but like the orchestrated parts just sing out a little bit more and just give it that bit more atmosphere and just give it that bit more darker and more sinister vibe to it. But along with that, the musicianship is top notch. And if you look at the Black Dahlia Murder's like discography, they've obviously had a couple of lineup changes, but always the two key members in the band have always been there, and that is Brian and Trevor, the vocalist and guitarist. They've always been in the band since day one and still here till this day, and they have made sure the Black Dahlia Murder has always put out a solid album every 2 years since, and I think that consistency just shows how much of a good band they are, you know what I mean? But anyway, and then unfortunately after Ritual, we then get the news that Shannon Lucas, the drummer of 3 albums, decided to part ways, and I think it was Bart, the bassist, parted ways as well, and I didn't know what to expect from the future. And then Ever Black came out, and I'm not gonna lie, I absolutely loved that album to begin with. I had it on repeat, listened to it about 10-12 times. Literally that's all I listened to for a straight couple of months. And then I went back to a couple of other albums, and then I thought, well, let's go back to Ever Black after listening to those. And I did, and I just didn't feel the love anymore for it. I felt, listening to it, the whole album just feels a bit more safer and a little bit more eased back a little bit when it comes to like intensity. Rather than intensity, just technicality. I think it just seems a little bit of a step back, personally. That's just my opinion anyway. Don't get us wrong, it's still a great album to listen to. I'm not gonna lie. I just think in the rest of the albums that the Black Dahlia Murders put out, they've put out more enjoyable albums, in my opinion. It's still enjoyable, but all the other albums, in my opinion, are just a little bit better. It's probably my least favourite of their discography. But that was with the introduction of, obviously, their current drummer, Alan Cassidy, and I believe Max Lavelle joined the band then. And obviously I was nervous going into that, but it's still a good album to listen to. And it made us worry what was going to be next after that for the Black Dahlia Murder, and I was just hoping in my heart that a little bit more creativity would have come to it, and especially Alan. I know he's a great drummer, and I knew he would be able to pull something out of the bag next album. And then we get to 2015 with the release of Abysmal. What a album. I was so blown away by this album. It wasn't in my top albums, unfortunately, but I have to say, it was such a consistent album compared to Everblack. I think it was just a step forward in the right direction. I know people, rather stupidly if you ask me, and if any of me YouTubers agree with us, please leave a like. You know, we're going to get that shit out of the way. You know, the YouTube-friendly shit. But leave a like if you agree. But I think when people think of Abysmal, they think it's a brutal death metal album cover with melodic death metal kind of album, like music. So, what's wrong with that? The artwork is gorgeous. I think it's one of the best Black Dahlia Murder artworks personally anyway. But anyway, the album itself was fantastic. It was leaps and bounds above Everblack. But it obviously still wasn't as consistent and as finicky as Ritual. Ritual was obviously amazing to me, but it was still a step forward in the right direction. I absolutely love it, and that's why I bought the shirt and the CD, because I felt like, yeah, this is the start of when the Black Dahlia Murder is going to evolve into a new beast, basically. And then in 2017, 2 years on, yet again, we have the arrival of Nightbringers. This is a relatively short album, in all honesty. It's only 34 minutes in length, and that's not including the bonus tracks, which we're not really going to talk about today. But I have to say, though, for as short as it is, it leaves a fucking impact. And I have to say that this is easily the best album that they've done with Alan on drums. And with this kind of new lineup, you could say, because I can't really compare it as much to the other albums because it's a different lineup and stuff, but I feel like this is a new chapter for the band. I think they're starting to take more of a more serious death metal approach rather than a very melodic, epic death metal approach. In my opinion, I think that's kind of working, and it shows the evolution of the band, because obviously if you listen to Unhallowed up till, let's say, Unhallowed and Miasma, then you go into Nocturnal, Death-Narrating and Ritual. That's kind of the second chapter. The third chapter is Everblack to Nightbringers. And I think this third chapter, personally to me, it's not really classified as that. This is just what I feel. I think Nightbringers is definitely up there with some of the best Black Dahlia Murder albums. I think this is one of the best Black Dahlia Murder albums, because I feel the intensity is just umped up a lot. The musicianship is there in connection with one another, and I think it sounds unbelievable. For as short as it is, I think it's one of the best albums that they've brought out. Alan's drumming is amped up so much. There's a lot more filling work going on, which, I mean, there's a lot more cymbal playing and fast tom rolls, and just a lot more diabolical diversity in the drums. It feels a lot more intense, a lot more experimental in some ways compared to Everblack, and it feels like what it feels like is what Everblack's drumming was, Abysmal's drumming to Everblack, evolutionized again from Abysmal to Nightbringers. I think that's the way it's, and I honestly think that Alan's fucking drum performance on this album is easily up there with the likes of Shannon Lucas on Nocturnal, Deflorate and Ritual. It is that good. It's so tense. And the footwork is improved dramatically. There's a lot of tense tightness with the guitars that really lock in and give that real intensity and pound and feel to it. And obviously, he smashes those drum skins like there's no tomorrow, and it's like it's the last time he's going to play it ever, and just doesn't give a fuck. It's just bombastic and huge sounding, and just mammoth, just absolute mammoth sound. I know I say that a lot, but honestly, the drum work is absolutely fantastic. So, Alan's done an absolute top job on this. What's his name? Max. His bass work is phenomenal. In my opinion, like, Bart was a really solid bass player, but Max's bass playing is just umped it. It's given it another level, and I think that's why they got him in the band, because he's bass playing, he's on top form on this album. And the bass tone itself cuts through the mix so finely. It's like a little bark in the back with a little bit of a crunch behind it, a crunchy bark behind it, bass tone. It's not get rumbly, but it still amps up the guitars and makes it feel a bit more impactful and a bit more intense in the mix, and it really amps up the guitars so fucking much and makes it sound as if one of the most heavy. If I have to say, now that I think back on the Black Dahlia Murder's discography, I think this is easily the heaviest guitar tone and bass tone that I've had on a Black Dahlia Murder album since. And obviously, as usual, Brian writing some of the most intense death metal riffs that he's ever done. He is a riff master when it comes to death metal, in my opinion. Combining this really as if at the gates kind of thrashy style, maybe a bit of Carcass influence in there, but still keeping that diabolic intensity of the death metal circuit. I think it's the leaning, more, as I said, more towards a straight up death metal side of influence rather than an epic melodic death metal side of things, and I think that's obviously the evolution, as I said before. But Brian's always been there, pulling out some of the most killer riffs and always pushing these boundaries and just bringing the heavy. This album is just full of riffs that really make you want to headbang. In my opinion, one of the better songs on this album when it comes to the riffs are Of Gods and Serpent, of Spectre and Snake. What a song for riffs. But the king of riffs on this album is Catacomb Hecatomb. Catacomb Hecatomb. Sorry about that. But yeah, honestly, what more can I say? That song is just heavy in your face, and when the as if breakdown part comes in, where they're screaming as we're both eating alive. Oh, when that hits so hard through some loudspeakers, oh, it just punches you right in the face. Just wow, absolutely wow. Great songwriting on this album. And obviously we've got the new addition since Ryan Knight has decided to part ways with the band. We have the introduction of Brandon Ellis. Now, Brandon is obviously known for his work with Arsis, and now has joined the Black Dahlia Murder, and it's a next evolutionary step once again for Black Dahlia Murder, with not as if same sort of vibe as Ryan Knight, because Ryan Knight I felt was a lot of a melodic kind of solo player that really made it sing, whereas Brandon, I feel he does have that melodicness when it needs to be, but he's a bit more as if chaotic to an extent, and just real lot of free flow in those guitar solos, you know. I'm even showing you like that. But yeah, he's an absolute top-notch guitar player, and the lead guitar tones just sing. They literally sing at you, and it just sounds awe-inspiring on this album. And then we'll move on to what is arguably my favourite part of this album. And every Black Dahlia Murder album, it just seems to get better, is Trevor Strnad. He is literally one of the greatest lyricists in death metal, and I think he's kind of underrated in an extent, but people who listen to the Black Dahlia Murder and other death metal bands will know that Trevor is an absolute mastermind behind the lyrics. He can create so much darkness, so much depth, and just evilness in his lyrics. He's one of the best, as I said before, and I think this is easily one of his best lyrical performances for a Black Dahlia Murder album. I think obviously there's been some great ones on Nocturnal, Ritual, and even Deathlorath. I love Deathlorath's lyrics, but this one is definitely takes the cake for me. I absolutely love this lyrically. And what can I say about his vocals? Well, if you've heard it, you'll know exactly what I mean. The vocals are leaps and bounds, and filled with so much more intensity than I have ever heard from Travis Jannard. I think his highs, they're not as like piercing as they used to be. If you've listened to like the likes of Nocturnal Deathlorath, Ritual, and Everblack, they were quite piercing high vocals, or really fucking high. But it feels like it's taking a step back, and then the lows have just amped up a little bit more, and it's created a fine balance now where they've filled both of them with intensity and passion and anger and just fierceness. There's a lot of fierceness in these vocals. The monstrous lows are definitely the most monstrous lows I've heard on a Black Dahlia Murder album, and indeed probably the death metal release in 2017. They're so monstrous. They're up there with the likes of Septic Flesh's vocals. That good. And they're not the same style, obviously, but you know what I mean. And the highs, they're still piercing and still angry and demonic, but they're just not as piercing anymore, and it just sounds a bit more angry, and I absolutely love it. And I might as well add their album artwork, done by the same guy who done Nocturnal, and I have to say, I love this artwork. And by the way, this year is celebrating 10 years since Nocturnal came out, so happy birthday to one of the greatest death metal albums, I might as well say. But anyway, this artwork is absolutely amazing. I absolutely love that. And the concept of these blokes down here, the 5 of them, which is on the inside, is, I believe, meant to be them in hoods. So that's fucking awesome. Really awesome artwork, but the musicianship outdoes the artwork, in my opinion. As in, the artwork is spectacular, but it doesn't compare to this album. It's so fucking good. It's easily one of the top death metal releases of 2017, and easily one of the top Black Dahlia Murder albums. And I know whatever they're going to come up with in the near future is just going to be spectacular and something fresh and just something special. And this masterpiece known as Nightbringers is getting a solid 9 out of 10 from me. It's absolutely amazing. It's definitely going to be making an appearance in my top albums of 2017, so make sure you stick around when that comes about. For tracks to check out, well, I'm definitely going to be leaving an album stream down below, because Metal Blade Records have kindly put that up, so you all to hear and bestow yourselves upon Nightbringers, that is by the Black Dahlia Murder. But I definitely recommend you check out, I'll leave some tracks as well, you can check out, as I said, Catacomb, Hecatomb, or Hecatomb rather, Jaws is an epic song, Nightbringers, the title track, Matriarch, Widowmaker, of God and Serpent, of Spectre and Snake, and As Good as Dead. Just so many fucking good songs on this album. It just adds so much to it, and you just need to hear it if you're into death metal and you haven't heard this album. But yeah, I'm going to sneeze. No, I'm not. Anyways, solid 9 out of 10 from me. I've got a couple of videos lined up. I've got super metal recommendations that I'm working on before year's end. Obviously, my top albums video is going to come in the distant future, towards the end of December. But also, topping that off, I might try and squeeze in a couple of reviews here and there, and obviously updates and purchases along the way, which I'm still working on at the moment. I haven't forgot about it, I'm just working on it. But yeah, I'll see you until the next video, and remember, stay metal, and I'll see you later.